All right, let's go on a little journey, an economist's journey through time, to trace the absolutely incredible story of the Indian rupee. And this story begins not with metal or paper, but with something you probably wouldn't expect, something that laid the foundation for one of the world's oldest currencies. You've probably heard this famous line from a 1976 movie. It just perfectly captures how central the rupee is in Indian culture. It's so much more than just money, right? It's a real social and cultural force. For decades, this line has basically been shorthand for the power of wealth, really cementing the rupee's place as a cultural icon.
So that's our big question, isn't it? How did this one currency evolve to hold such a powerful position? To figure that out, we've got to peel back the layers of history, starting way, way before the first coin was ever even minted.
Okay, so our story starts with what I like to call the ancient ledger. And you got to forget everything you think you know about standardized coins. We're diving into this complex, almost organic system of value that's left a pretty fascinating mark on the language people use today.
Yup, you heard that right. The very foundation of Indian currency was the humble cowrie shell. I mean, for centuries, these tiny little seashells were the main way people kept accounts and traded across the entire subcontinent. Just try to imagine that for a second. An entire economy running on something so small.
And get this, the sheer scale here is just mind-boggling. When the first rupee started to become standardized, its value was actually tied to this ancient system. One early rupee was worth 5,275 putti kodis. That's broken cowrie shells. That really tells you just how granular, how detailed this old economy actually was.
And this is where it gets really complex. It wasn't a simple one-to-one system at all. You had this whole ladder of value. You start with broken cowries, which made whole cowries, which made up a damdi, then a dela, and so on, all the way up to the anna. It sounds like an accountant's nightmare, but somehow it worked for hundreds of years.
And what's so cool is that the legacy of this system is literally baked right into modern language. When someone says they won't even give a putti kodi, they're referencing the absolute lowest possible unit of value from this ancient ladder. It's economic history hiding in plain sight.
Okay, so you've got this kind of chaotic system of shells. How do you get from that to a unified currency? Well, it takes an empire, and a ruler who's really thinking like an economist, someone who wants to solve a classic problem, how to make trade easier.
So, picture this. It's the mid-16th century. The ruler, Sher Shah Suri. He looks out across his empire, and what does he see? Economic chaos. Dozens of different currencies getting in the way of trade and tax collection. His solution? It was revolutionary. He created a single, standardized silver coin for everyone, and this was the birth of the rupiah.
And the name he chose? Well, it tells you everything you need to know. Rupiah comes from the Sanskrit word for silver, rapya. And this is a huge point. The currency was named directly for the precious metal that gave it its value. It was a promise of worth, stamped right there in silver.
All right, let's jump forward a few hundred years, because we're about to hit what is, hands down, the single most important reform in the rupee's modern history. This is the moment the rupee really enters the modern economic age, getting ready for its role on the global stage.
So check this out. On April 1st, 1957, everything changed. India decimalized its currency. Before this date, 1 rupee was 16 annas, and each anna was 4 paise, so a rupee was 64 paise. It was a complex old system. Then, almost overnight, it was simplified. 1 rupee equals 100 naya paise or new paise. This one change made trade, accounting, and finance so much easier and aligned India with the modern global economy.
And all of that brings us right up to today, to the actual money that might be in your wallet right now. See, that decimal system from 1957 laid all the groundwork for the coins we see in India today, and they tell a really interesting story of economic change.
So what does that look like today? Well, the Reserve Bank of India currently issues coins for 1, 2, 5, 10, and even 20 rupees. But here's the fascinating part from an economist's view. Coins smaller than 50 paise aren't even minted anymore. And why is that? Well, it's a classic indicator. Inflation has basically eroded their value so much that they actually cost more to make than they're worth.
So where does the story go from here? Well, the rupee's journey doesn't just stop at India's borders. It's got this incredible global past and, you guessed it, a very digital future. It's just continuing its long, long history of adaptation.
For centuries, the rupee wasn't just a local thing. It was a powerhouse, a major international trade currency.
Indian merchants carried it all across the Indian Ocean, and its influence is still felt today. In fact, several countries, like Pakistan and Nepal, still call their currency the rupee, a direct legacy of this shared economic history.
And that brings us to the very latest chapter in this epic story, the e-rupee. This is a central bank digital currency. It's the government-backed digital version of cash. I mean, think about that journey for a second. From physical shells, to metal coins, to paper notes, and now to pure digital data in a wallet on your phone.
So, from cowrie shells to QR codes, the Indian rupee has never stopped evolving, has it? It's always been adapting to the technological and economic needs of the time. And that just leaves us with this one final, massive question. If this has been the journey so far, what is the concept of money even going to look like in the next 500 years?